Hey there. Welcome to the official audiobook of Touchdown for Two, a story about sketchbooks, sideline dreams, and what happens when someone finally sees you for who you are. Written by Autumn Wells, this young adult romance is cozy, bold, and quietly powerful. So grab a blanket, let the rain fall, and step into the story. If you'd like to own a copy, the link is in the description below. The ebook is just $3 and the paperback is around $12. Your support means the world. Let's begin. Published by Autumn Wells. For the ones who stayed and the ones who didn't. Main characters. Wren Carter, a curvy, confident 17-year-old senior with a sharp sense of humor. She's tired of being noticed for her size, but not herself. Drew Harper, star quarterback, tall, golden, and unexpectedly deep, hides his insecurities behind a charming smile. Lexi, Wren's fiercely loyal best friend, tiny and loud. Coach Sullivan, the strict but fair football coach, who gives Wren a surprise opportunity. Caitlin, queen bee cheerleader, ex of Drew, obsessed with image and status. The girl in the bleachers. Friday nights tasted like cheap nachos and bad decisions. Wren Carter sat 3 rows from the top, alone on the metal bleachers, sketchbook balanced across her denim-covered knees. The roar of the stadium swelled around her, parents screaming, cheerleaders chanting, whistles slicing the air. But she didn't watch the game. She watched the chaos. Or rather, she drew it. Her pencil moved with quiet precision, etching the curve of the quarterback's motion mid-throw, the blur of cleats against turf, the way the floodlights wash the players in halo of fire. She shaded in the quarterback's jersey last. Number 9, Drew Harper. Wren had never spoken to him. Not once. He was the type of boy who belonged to stadiums, to parties, to girls who wore lip gloss and never worried if a seatbelt would pinch their stomachs. She wasn't bitter about it. Not anymore. That kind of world wasn't built for girls like her. Sharp-tongued, broad-hipped, a little too much in every direction. So she stayed in her world, with graphite and shadows, tucked just far enough out of sight that no one had to feel awkward about ignoring her. Until it happened. 4th quarter, final drive. The team needed one more touchdown. The whole field held its breath as Drew caught the snap, faked a handoff, dodged a tackle, and then surged forward, feet pounding, defenders closing in. And then he broke free. The crowd exploded as he dove into the end zone, ball clutched to his chest. Players swarmed him, coaches yelled, someone set off a firework prematurely. Wren didn't cheer. She just turned the page in her sketchbook. And that's when it happened. As the noise reached a fever pitch, Drew turned, just for a moment, surrounded by teammates, helmet in one hand, hair wild with sweat and grit. He looked up, right at her. Straight into the crowd, into the shadows, into the 3rd row from the top, at the girl who didn't belong in his world. She froze. Her heart stuttered in her chest, as if the bleachers beneath her knew something she didn't. And for the smallest sliver of a second, Wren Carter swore he smiled. Not for the crowd, not for the cameras, for her. Of course, she told herself later, it had to be a coincidence. She was just the girl in the bleachers. No one ever looked up at her, right?
Chapter 1. Invisible No More. Wren Carter never expected to be part of the school's Friday night chaos. She was the kind of girl who stayed just out of the way, close enough to watch, far enough not to be noticed. At East Ridge High, visibility was currency, and Wren, she was broke. The Monday after the game, it was all over the hallways. Drew Harper's record-breaking touchdown, the team's comeback win, and most of all, the way he looked into the crowd afterward. Everyone had their own version. A girl claimed he smiled at her. Someone else swore he pointed right at the marching band. Wren said nothing. She just kept walking, hoodie zipped, earbuds in, sketchbook tucked tightly under one arm. But that morning, the universe decided to mess with her routine. Wren's harder, report to the front office. Her name crackled through the school intercom like a mistake. Heads turned. People looked up. Lexi, sitting next to her in homeroom, raised both eyebrows like, "What did you do now?" Wren shrugged and grabbed her stuff. The walk to the office felt longer than usual. She rehearsed worst-case scenarios. Detention, overdue library book fines. Maybe someone finally caught her drawing unflowering cartoons of faculty members on the bathroom stalls. She pushed open the office door. Coach Sullivan stood waiting, arms crossed, holding a clipboard. "Wren Carter," he asked, as if he hadn't just called her down. "Yeah? You signed up for the team assistant raffle last week?" "I did not." He raised his eyebrow. "Well, someone signed your name, and you won." She looked down at the clipboard, and there it was, her name, scribbled with Lexi's handwriting. Of course. "You're kidding." "Nope." He handed her a folded paper. "You'll be our team assistant for the next 2 weeks. Practice, gear runs, water duty, you good?" She opened her mouth to protest, but Coach had already turned around. "And Carter," he called over his shoulder, "you miss a day, I pick someone else." Wren stood frozen, gripping that paper, her heart pounding for no rational reason. She walked back to class slowly, staring at the schedule. The first task? Meet the team after school. Locker room, South Wing. She dropped into her seat beside Lexi with the grace of a brick. "You absolute traitor." Lexi grinned. "You're welcome. I'm going to kill you." "You're going to thank me. You've been drawing those guys all semester from the bleachers like it's an art exhibit. Time to get up close." Oh, groan. But her voice caught just slightly on the name she didn't say. Drew Harper, the boy who, maybe, possibly, definitely, looked up at her that night. Now she'd have to walk into his world. And there were no sketchbooks to hide behind.
Chapter 2. Drew Harper, Untackled. The boys' locker room was louder than Wren expected. Not chaotic, exactly. Just full of the kind of noise that made you feel like you'd stepped into a different dimension. Shoes squeaked on linoleum. Someone tossed a water bottle. Someone else yelled about protein bars. Wren paused in the doorway, schedule crushed in her hand, heartbeat in her ears. She wasn't invisible here. That terrified her. Coach Sullivan spotted her immediately. "Carter, good. Come here." She walked fast, kept her head down. "Fellas," Coach barked, "this is Wren Carter. She's your assistant this week, so show some respect. If she says you need to wear knee pads, you wear the damn pads." A few of them laughed. One guy leaned toward another and whispered, not quietly, "We got a plus-sized water girl now." A ripple of snickers followed. Wren said nothing, but her face burned. Then came a voice, low, quiet, confident. "Maybe you should worry about catching the ball instead of cracking jokes, Evans." The laughter stopped. Wren glanced sideways. Drew Harper. Helmet under one arm, jersey streaked with sweat, hair messy in that deliberately unbothered kind of way. He wasn't looking at her, not exactly, just standing there, calm, like he'd barely said a word at all. Evans muttered something and turned away. Coach nodded at her. You're with Harper today. He'll show you the ropes. Her stomach sank. Of all the players, it had to be him. He didn't smile when she walked over, didn't smirk, didn't do any of the things boys usually did when they were dared to be polite to a girl they barely knew. He just handed her a clipboard. You know how to read plays? Only if they look like comic books. That earned a flicker of a smile. I'll take that as a no. She followed him out to the field. He walked slowly, but with purpose. Wren noticed that, how he never slouched, never seemed unsure, like he didn't have to perform for anyone, even though all eyes were always on him. You drew me, he said, casually. My heart stopped. What? Last Friday. You had a sketchbook. I saw you. You were drawing the play, or me, I think. You were looking? He shrugged. I watch the crowd sometimes. Helps me breathe. Iran didn't know what to say. People like Drew weren't supposed to notice people like her. Not unless they were being ironic or cruel or bored. You're really good. Thanks, she said quickly, trying not to overthink it. You were a decent model. Another half smile. Don't let Coach hear that. He'll make me stand still for portraits. They fell into an easy silence as the rest of the team jogged past them. Wren handed him towels, water, gear, anything to keep her hands from fidgeting. Then, just as he turned to join warm-ups, he said without looking at her, You ever think about showing your work, like, to actual people? She blinked. What, like a gallery of sweaty linebackers? He looked at her then, not with sarcasm, not with pity, with something closer to curiosity. You see things differently. That's rare. And before she could come up with something clever, he was gone, jogging to the huddle, dashing into the noise. Wren stood there, her heart unreasonably loud in her chest. He noticed her. He remembered her. She wasn't invisible anymore.
Chapter 3. Sidelined. Wren didn't want to talk about Drew Harper, which was unfortunate because Lexi did. I'm sorry, Lexi said, tossing a fry into her mouth. He said what to you? Wren stabbed at her salad as if it had personally wronged her. He just said I see things differently. That's it. Girl, that's a line from a Nicholas Sparks movie. He's totally into you. Wren rolled her eyes, even though her cheeks were still warm from yesterday. He probably says that to anyone who hands him a towel. Okay, listen. I know you're allergic to compliments, but Drew Harper is not the kind of guy who notices people out of boredom. He noticed you. That's a big deal. Wren glanced around the cafeteria. It was buzzing, as always. Couples sharing earbuds, seniors pretending not to stress about college, freshmen trying too hard to fit in. No one was looking at her. She liked it that way, usually. But today she felt seen. And not just because Lexi wouldn't shut up. Yesterday had been different. The way Drew had spoken to her, calm, casual, and just real, felt nothing like the fake small talk she was used to. She wanted to believe it meant something. She also wanted to believe chocolate counted as a vegetable. Both were dangerous hopes. Anyway, Lexi said, popping a fry dramatically, you're going back today, right? I sighed. Do I have a choice?
Yes, but if you say no, I will personally drag you there by your sketchbook. The locker room was quieter on day 2. Wren arrived early, hoping to avoid the peanut gallery. She organized the water bottles, checked the equipment chart, and quietly debated hiding behind the laundry cart if Evan showed up again. She didn't expect Drew to be there already. He sat alone on the bench, lacing his cleats. No headphones, no teammates, just him and the sound of cleats clicking against the floor. He looked up and smiled. Not the half smile from yesterday, a real one. Quick, easy. Hey, I said back, suddenly where she hadn't checked a mirror all day. You got promoted to head coach yet? Not yet, but I'm planning the hostile takeover. I already have a clipboard. He chuckled, then reached into his gym bag. You dropped this yesterday. Wren frowned as he held out a piece of paper. A sketch. Her sketch. Of him, helmet off, looking up, right after the touchdown. Her heart skipped. He didn't mean to keep it, he said, but it's really good. I wanted to make sure it got back to you. She took it gently, trying not to look too stunned. It's kind of weird seeing myself like that, he added, softer now, like I'm not just a number on a jersey. You're not, she said, then instantly regretted how fast it came out. But Drew didn't flinch. He just smiled again. Thanks. Before she could answer, the door burst open. Caitlin's. Blonde, flawless, ex-cheer captain, and, of course, Drew's ex-girlfriend. Well, she said, eyes narrowing on Wren. This is new. Wren tensed. Drew stood up. We were just talking. Caitlin raised her brow. Talking, right. Her voice dropped as she passed Wren. Try not to spill any water today. Would hate for you to slip. Wren didn't respond. She just picked up the towel cart and wheeled it out, pretending the sting in her eyes was from the fluorescent lights. Later, on the sideline, Drew jogged past and gave her a look. Not pity, concern. She forced a smile. She didn't want him to worry, didn't want anyone to. But inside, she felt like a cheerleader caught her without armor. She could handle being invisible. It was this new version, the version that mattered, that suddenly felt breakable.
Chapter 4. The Playbook and the Paintbrush. The field smelled like damp grass and cheap cologne. Wren sat on the sideline, sketchbook tucked under her arm like a secret weapon, pretending not to notice the way Drew glanced at her every time he jogged off the field. She pretended not to notice, but she noticed. Practice was winding down. The sun sank lower, casting gold across the turf, the bleachers glowing orange behind them. Wren cast out the last few water bottles, then plopped down cross-legged near the bench, flipping through her sketchbook to kill time. She didn't think he'd notice, but Drew Harper noticed everything. He wandered over after a final sprint lap, cheeks flushed from running, hair damp with sweat. You draw during practice? Wren shrugged, only the interesting parts. He peered over her shoulder, not crowding, just close enough for her to feel it. On the page, a rough sketch of the last offensive formation. The team's usual play, except she'd marked a gap on the left side with an X. You see that? He asked, surprised. The opening? Wren nodded. Every time. Number 77's too slow when the defense shifts. You could run it up the left with a quick fake. Drew sat down beside her, just like that, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Show me. She blinked. What? Draw it out, like a play. I'm not a coach.
No, you're better. You say things no one else does. He said it so simply. Not like a line, not like flattery. Just the truth, laid out like laces on a football. So she did. She turned the page and began to sketch. Drew leaned in as she diagrammed the motion, arrows and circles forming a kind of visual dance. When she looked up, he was watching her, not the drawing. "You're really good at this," he said. "Maybe I miss my calling as offensive coordinator," I joked, trying to ignore the heat creeping up my neck. "You ever think about sports design? Journalism, strategy?" I laughed. "Ren Carter, football genius. That's a plot twist." "I'm serious." I looked at him, really looked at him. For once, not as the golden boy quarterback, but just Drew, sitting in the dirt beside me, curious, sincere. He wasn't a stereotype, and he wasn't treating me like one either. "Why are you being nice to me?" The question hung between us, raw and real. He paused. "Because you're worth being nice to." My breath caught in my chest. Words scrambled in my head, but nothing came out. So I looked back down on the page, pretending I didn't hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "Run the play tomorrow." Drew grinned. "Only if I get to name it." I smiled, finally. "Fine, but if it works, I'm taking full credit." He stood, stretching. "Deal." He jogged back to his team, but before he reached them, he turned and pointed at her drawing. "That's a touchdown waiting to happen." Ren stayed seated, sun in her eyes, sketchbook in her lap. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like just a girl on the sideline. She felt like part of the game.
Chapter 5. Cheerleaders and Cheap Shots. Ren was trying not to care. That morning, she reminded herself that the whole thing was Drew, the sketchbook, the play, the late afternoon on the grass wasn't anything. Except it was something. Because the next day, it worked. The play they drew up together, Drew ran it, and it worked perfectly. From the sidelines, Ren watched with a strange mix of awe and terror as he faked the handoff, rolled left, and cut through the line exactly where she'd marked it in her sketchbook. The whole team erupted when he reached the end zone untouched. Coach Sylvan gave him a stunned look. "Where'd you learn that play?" Drew just smiled and pointed toward the bench. Right at her. Ren blinked. People looked. People cheered. And then, like a slow, oncoming storm, came the part she hadn't prepared for. By Monday, the hallways were electric. "Did you hear? Ren Carter made the play for the win." "Ren who?" "You know, the chubby art girl. She's like dating Drew Harper now." Ren kept her head down, but she could feel it. The attention. The eyes. The low buzz of gossip that clung to her like humidity. Lexi practically exploded with joy at lunch. "Your play made the morning announcements. This is it. You're going to be a legend or a meme or both." Ren tried to laugh, but her nerves were winning. She wasn't used to being talked about. Not like this. Not out in the open. So when Caitlin sauntered up to our table, hip-cocked, smile fake, Ren braced herself. "Cute sketch the other day, Kay. I didn't know they let everyone into strategy meetings now." Lexi rolled her eyes. "You mean girls with functioning brains?" Caitlin ignored her. "I'm just saying, maybe stick to your sketchbook. Leave the football to people who actually fit the part." And with that, she placed a glossy printout on the table. Ren stared. It was her. A photo from 2 years ago. Candid, mid-laugh, double chin caught at the wrong angle, oversized hoodie stretching across her stomach. A frozen moment of vulnerability pasted like a headline. Under it, someone had scrawled in Sharpie, "Team mascot." The cafeteria went silent. Ren stood slowly. Her throat tightened. Lexi reached for her, but she was already walking. Fast, shoulders tense, eyes fixed in the hallway ahead. She didn't stop until she was in the bathroom, hands gripping the sink, breath shaky. Mascot? Like she was some kind of joke, a costume, a thing people clapped for but never really saw. The paper crumpled in her hand as tears burnt her eyes. She hated that it still got to her. She hated that she almost believed she deserved it. Drew found her after 6th period. Somehow, like he had a radar for when things broke inside her. "Hey," he said gently. Ren didn't look up. "You saw it." He nodded. "Yeah." She waited for the pity, the awkward "I'm sorry," the clumsy fixer words. Instead, he pulled out his phone. A photo. Of her sketch. The one she'd drawn of him mid-game, charging toward the end zone. The one he called a touchdown waiting to happen. "I showed this to Coach. Told him yours. And he told me he wants you on the strategy board for next game. Said you have real vision." Ren blinked, startled. "He said that?" Drew nodded again, and I said that I agreed. The silence between them felt different now. Not heavy. Steady. You don't have to let people like her decide who you are. Ren looked at him for a long second. "It's not always that easy." "No," he agreed. "But it helps when someone stands beside you." Something in her cracked open then. Not broken, just softened. The armor didn't fall off, but it loosened. "Thanks," she said, barely above a whisper. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to shrink to be seen.
Chapter 6. The Wrong Kind of Fame. It wasn't the kind of attention Ren Carter ever wanted. By Wednesday, her name was everywhere. In the morning announcements, in the school paper, whispered through locker rows like she was some kind of campus glitch no one could figure out. The art girl who made the play. The girl Drew Harper smiled at. The girl who didn't fit the frame. Ren tried to tell herself it didn't matter, that it would pass. But fame, even the accidental kind, had a way of digging in, especially in high school. "People are weird," Lexi said bluntly at lunch. "First they ignore you, now they want autographs. What's next? A statue outside the gym?" Ren stirred her yogurt half-heartedly. "I should have stayed invisible." Lexi leaned her chin on her fist. "No, you shouldn't have. You're brilliant. You saw the gap in the play that nobody else did. That's not nothing. Tell that to the girls who keep whispering when I walk by." Let them whisper, they were boring anyway. Ren tried to smile, but it felt paper thin. Across the cafeteria, she spotted Drew sitting with his teammates. He was laughing at something, relaxed, backlit by sunshine streaming through the windows. His eyes flicked up just for a second and found hers. A glance. A quiet check-in. She dropped her gaze, not because she didn't want to meet it, but because something inside her jolted when he looked at her like that. Like she mattered. In 7th period, things got worse. Someone had slipped a note into her sketchbook when she wasn't working. Folded neatly, no name. She opened it at the back of class. "You're not a player. You're the joke." Her stomach dropped. The bell rang and students poured into the hallways. Ren stood frozen, the paper still in her hand, heat crawling up her throat. She left early. Lexi called after her, but Ren didn't stop walking. She didn't go to practice that afternoon. Instead, she walked home 3 miles in the round shoes, sketchbook tucked under her arm like a shield. She didn't cry.
not until she got to her room. Her phone buzzed later that night. Drew Harper. Hey, you okay? She didn't respond. Another message came in. Drew Harper. Saw Coach looking for you. Everyone's wondering where you are. She turned her phone over and pressed it face down on the nightstand because she didn't want Drew Harper, kind, steady, confusing Drew Harper, to see the version of her that didn't know how to be brave anymore. The next day, she didn't go to school, and for the first time since it all began, no one noticed. At least, that's what she thought, until she checked her phone. One new message, not from Drew, from Coach Sullivan. You're onto something, Carter. That play changed the whole game. Don't let noise from the sidelines take you out. We need your eye. She stared at it for a long time. Then she turned her sketchbook over, flipped to a blank page, and drew not the field, not the play. She drew herself. Not flawless, not filtered, not hidden. Just her. And for once, she liked what she saw.
Chapter 7. Breakdown at Practice. The next time Wren walked onto the field, she kept her shoulders squared and her eyes forward. She wasn't sure what had changed. Maybe nothing had, but something inside her had clicked, quietly, like a door finally unlocking. The fear was still there, coiled in her ribs, but it didn't own her anymore. She wore her favorite hoodie, the purple one with the paint stain on the sleeve, the one that made her feel like herself. The players were already running drills when she arrived. Coach Sullivan nodded from the sidelines, like he hadn't missed her at all, like she hadn't just disappeared for 2 days. But Drew noticed. He jogged over, breathless and sweaty, brows lifted in relief. "Hey," he said. "Hey, you okay?" "Better." She didn't elaborate, and he didn't push. He just handed her a clipboard and nudged her shoulder lightly. "Coach wants us to revisit that left side run. Think we can draw up a variation?" She blinked at him. "You still want to work on plays with me?" "Wren," he said, grinning, "you're literally the only reason we won last Friday." Her chest did that annoying flutter thing again. She pretended to check her notes. But as practice went on, something shifted in the air. The rhythm was off. The team was tense. And Drew, who usually danced across the field like it was built for him, kept stumbling, missing passes, fumbling snaps, tripping over his own cleats. By the third dropped catch, Coach Sullivan threw his clipboard down. "What's going on with you, Harper?" Drew didn't answer. Wren stood still at the edge of the field, watching the golden boy unravel. One of the linemen muttered loud enough for her to hear. "Maybe he's distracted. Too busy chasing sketchbook girls." She felt it like a slap. Drew must have heard too, because he whipped around, faced tight. "Say that again?" "Come on, man. We all know this is a phase. Just get your head back in the game." Coach blew his whistle before anything more could be said. But the damage was done. Wren backed away, slowly, quietly. She didn't want Drew to see her. Not like this, not now. Later, long after the sun dipped below the bleachers and most of the players had gone home, Wren sat on the edge of the field alone. Her sketchbook was open beside her, untouched. She stared out at the grass, the goalposts, and the empty stands. Drew found her there. He didn't say anything first, just sat down next to her, silent and slow. "You were off today," she said gently. "I know." "You okay?" He didn't answer right away. His voice, when it came, was quiet. "I used to love this game, not because of winning, just like breathing, like the one place I didn't have to pretend." She looked over at him. The vulnerability in his face startled her. "My dad's been on my back about scouts. He wants me to apply early to play in college. Full ride or nothing." "You don't want that?" "I want a future I actually choose. And lately, I don't even know what that looks like." She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Another sketch. A version of the play they'd talked about. Modified, cleaner, smarter. She handed it to him. He looked at it for a long moment, then at her. "You're not a distraction." "I know. You're the only part of this that feels real right now." Her breath caught. Then, quietly, she said, "So don't let them take that from you." Drew nodded, tucking the sketch into his pocket, and for the first time all day, he looked steady again.
Chapter 8: The Sketchbook and the Silence. Ren didn't go to practice the next day. Not because of the whispers, not even because of the note, but because she needed space to think about Drew, about herself, about the version of her life that seemed to be tilting in a direction she hadn't planned for. She sat by her window as the sun dipped low, sketchbook open in her lap, pages fluttering in the breeze. She wasn't drawing Drew this time, or plays, or helmets, or bleachers. She was drawing an ending, an image of a player alone on the field, under the lights, but looking off stage, toward something unseen. It felt honest, and it hurt. The next morning, she walked the halls of Eastridge like a ghost. Nobody stopped her. Nobody whispered anything cruel. But the silence had changed. It wasn't invisibility anymore. It was avoidance. People knew her now and didn't know what to do with her. And Drew? He hadn't texted since practice. She didn't blame him. She'd seen it in his eyes, the pressure building, the way his shoulders slumped when the locker room buzzed behind his back. He was trying to hold too many versions of himself at once. Golden boy, son, quarterback. Now, hers? Maybe it was unfair to ask him to be more. Maybe it was selfish to even hope. By lunch, she'd made a decision. She walked to the locker room between classes, heart pounding and hands shaking. No one was there. The team wouldn't arrive until after school. She slipped a folded paper into his locker. No note, just a sketch, clean, exact, shaded with all the precision she could summon. The final version of the play they'd been building together for days. The one that could win the game. Then she turned and walked away. And this time, she didn't look back. Lexi found her after 7th period. "You didn't go to practice again?" Ren shook her head. "Are you okay?" "I think I just need to remember who I was before all this started." Lexi studied her. "That's fair, but just don't forget who you've become." "I haven't," Ren whispered. But the truth was, she was afraid she had.
afraid she'd wrapped herself around Drew Harper like he was a light in the dark, and forgotten she was the one who brought the matches. That night, Wren sat by her bedroom window again. The moon was low and orange over the trees. Her sketchbook lay closed on her desk. Her phone sat face down, silent. No messages, no apologies. Just silence. And in the middle of that silence, Wren Carter made peace with the fact that not all stories were built to last. Some just burn bright and taught you who you were before the smoke faded.
Chapter 9, Fourth Quarter. Friday night came like it always did, full of floodlights and fried food and too many voices trying to be louder than the silence inside Wren Carter's chest. She sat in the top row of the bleachers again, just like the beginning. Hoodie zipped up, sketchbook in her lap, pencil still, heart racing. She wasn't supposed to be here. She'd told herself she was done, but she didn't need to watch him play, that she didn't need to see if he'd used the sketch, but something deeper, quieter, had pulled her here anyway. The field buzzed below. The band blared something vaguely recognizable. The scoreboard blinked. East Ridge, 17, Southbrook, 21, fourth quarter. 1 minute and 42 seconds left. A hush spread across the stadium as Drew jogged onto the field, helmet in hand, eyes forward. And then as the offense lined up, something shifted. Wren saw it before anyone else. The play, the one she drew, the version she left in his locker, the one with the fake pivot and the shift left, then the kite roll out to the weak side. He was running it. Her breath caught. The defense fell for it hard. Drew sprinted past the last block, legs churning, every inch of his body moving like he knew where he was going. Wren stood. The stadium exploded before he even reached the end zone. Touchdown! And then he did something that made her knees almost buckle. He turned, helmet off, hair damp, breath visible in the cold night air, and looked straight at her, right up to the top bleacher row, the same way he had that first night. But this time, there was no question who he was looking at. He pointed up, one finger, quick, subtle, just enough. Wren's hand rose to her mouth, because in that moment, under the lights, with the crowd roaring and the scoreboard blinking and the band screaming behind her, she realized she wasn't just a girl in the bleachers anymore. She was part of the play, part of the win, part of him. Later, when the stadium cleared and the noise faded to echoes, she found herself standing near the field, alone. Until she wasn't. "Hey," Drew said, breathless from the post-game chaos. "Hey," she whispered. "You saw it." "I know. It worked." "I know." He looked at her for a long time, then smiled, the soft kind, the kind that doesn't ask for anything in return. "I don't know what happens next," he said. "Me either," she replied. They stood there, under the stadium lights, two people who weren't supposed to find each other, and did. And maybe that was enough. For now. Chapter 10. Bleachers Revisited. Wren didn't go to the field after the game. She didn't need to. The whole school was buzzing. People danced in the parking lot. Horns honked. Someone even lit sparklers near the locker room, which was probably a fire hazard, but no one cared. East Ridge had won. And somewhere in the middle of all that celebration, Drew Harper had said her name on camera in front of the entire county. "This win's for the girl who saw the field like no one else did."
Wren, if you're watching, you know what this means. She had watched from the top row of the bleachers, alone, again. Only this time, the silence felt full, not empty. The wind picked up slightly as she tucked her hair behind her ear, sketchbook unopened in her lap. She didn't need to draw this moment. She was already inside it. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn around. She already knew. "I meant it," Drew said quietly, sitting beside her. She looked at him. The helmet was gone, his hair still messy, a small scrape on his cheek, but his eyes, clear. "I said what I said, not because you changed me, but because you reminded me I don't have to play a role." Wen blinked, slowly. "I don't want to be someone I'm not anymore. Not for Scouts, not for my dad, not even for the crowd. You were never just the quarterback to me." "I know." And then he leaned in. Not like a hero in a movie, not like a dramatic moment timed with fireworks. Just a boy who saw her, and a girl who let herself be seen. Their lips met, softly, steady. No lights, no cheers, just heartbeats.
Chapter 11. After the Whistle. 2 weeks later, the scoreboard had been taken down for winter maintenance, and the bleachers sat empty under frosted skies. The season was over, but everything had just begun. Wren stood outside the guidance office, a crumpled envelope in her hands. Lexi peeked over her shoulder. "Are you going to open it or make it into a paper sculpture?" Wren grinned, tore it open, then blinked again. "You got in?" Lexi asked, even though the answer was all over Wren's stunned face. Wren nodded, slowly. "I got in to the summer studio program." Lexi screamed, very publicly. It was the one she'd whispered about but never dared apply to until Drew made her believe her drawings mattered. The one in New York for students who saw the world differently. She had sent her sketchbook. She hadn't expected anything back. But here it was. Proof that her story could go somewhere new. Drew didn't come to school that day. He was visiting a college in state. Not for football, not for pre-law, for sports journalism. He'd sent her a picture of the campus newspaper's press box along with the caption, "The view's not bad. Think I could write about games instead of just playing them?" Wren had replied, "Only if you quote me every third article." He liked that. They sat together later that night in Drew's car, parked near the lake behind town. The windows were fogged, the heater rattled, a playlist hummed low in the background. She asked softly, tracing a foggy circle on the window with her fingertip, "Do you think we're just a season?" He said no. "I think we're the choice people don't expect you to make." She looked at him. "I don't want this to be a fairy tale," she said. He nodded. "Me neither. Fairy tales end when the magic runs out." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "So what do we call this?" He rested his hand over hers. Real. They didn't define the future that night. They didn't promise forever, but they promised something better. To keep choosing each other as they are, as they grew. After the lights, after the season, after the whistle.
Final chapter. The 8-minute rule. A whisper, not a scream. A ripple, not a splash. It smelled like varnish and fresh paint. The school gallery buzzed with quiet conversation, parents clutching coffee cups, students pointing out their work, teachers nodding with that proud but tired end-of-year look. But Wren stood still, her fingers tucked into her jacket sleeves, staring at the final piece hung on the farthest wall. Her piece. Her story. Not the sketch of the field, not the diagrammed play, not even Drew, though he was in it. It was all of it. All of them. At the center, Drew Harper in uniform, mid-motion, holding the football like it belonged to more than just him. His face wasn't cocky. It was honest, focused, real. But the spotlight, it wasn't on him. It was on the sideline, where his sketchbook lay open on a bench, and drawn inside it, with clean, intentional lines, was Wren's face. Not hiding, not uncertain, smiling, lit up, seen. Students passed by and lingered, some whispering, "Who did this one? She's a senior, right? Is that her?" But Wren wasn't listening because Drew had just walked in, backpack slung over one shoulder, wearing the same hoodie he'd lent her the night they first kissed. He smiled when he saw her. "I didn't know you'd put that one in," he said, nodding at the piece. She shrugged, pretending to study it again. "Felt right." He looked at it for a long moment, then pointed to the caption beneath the frame. She'd kept it simple. "Every player needs someone who sees the name differently." Drew took her hand. "That's the best ending I've ever read." Wren smiled, eyes warm. "Good thing it's not the ending." And just like that, they stepped away from the wall, together. The end. And that was Touchdown for Two by Autumn Wells, a story about sketchbooks, sidelines, and the kind of love that doesn't need a spotlight to be real. If this story touched your heart even a little, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with someone who's ever felt invisible in a crowd. And if you'd like to own the book, the ebook is just $3 and the paperback is around $12. The link is in the description below. Thanks for listening. And remember, every player needs someone who sees the game differently. Until next time, stay warm, stay kind, and stay seen.